Hi, my name is Stephanie Stallings. I am a student in the Master's in Legal Studies program in Indigenous Peoples Law. This is the Religion, Culture, and Indian Law class, LSI 5623. I am doing my Week 7 presentation on the Washayam Ponqué Museum located in Valley Center, California, on the Rincon Band of Liseño Indian Reservation. The reason I chose to do this tribal museum is because I am Rincon Liseño, so I wanted to do a little bit of give you guys a little bit of information on that, and learned a little bit myself also. So just to give you guys a little bit of history of the Rincon Liseño tribe. I am going to step out of the screen because whenever I'm in the screen it does not show the presentation very well. So I'm going to show you guys a quick short video. The Rincon Liseño Reservation, you're not going to be able to hear what it is, but what I'm hoping that you can see is there are two major areas that the Rincon Liseño and the Liseño tribe as a whole uses. So the video is quickly showing that the current location of the Liseño tribes, there are 6 recognized tribes, which include the Saboba, the Pechanga, the Pala, the Pama, the Rincon, and the La Jolla tribes. Up until the 18th centuries, they are currently located in the areas they are, which fall from the Palm Springs area for Pechanga all the way down to North County, San Diego, which would be the La Jolla and the Rincon area. But up to 1,200 years ago, the Liseño territory for the 6 tribes actually flowed, which again, when you guys look at the presentation, you'll be able to see this better. It actually flowed all the way to the South Channel Islands off of this Southern California coast, which includes present-day Catalina Island, Santa Barbara Island, San Nicolas Island, and San Clemente Island. The tribe was known to be not quite bi-coastal technically, but what it was is they were a migrating tribe that went from the coastal area back inland. This can be present in not only the baskets, the use of abalone shells, the use of acorns, in the mountains. So it was very known that they were a traveling tribe that would head back and forth, essentially. So the purpose behind the museum. So the purpose behind the museum was actually just meant for tribal members only when they first opened. It was supposed to be a historical and cultural experience to give the Liseño people, not just the Rincon people, but also the neighboring Liseño tribes, information on the people, basketry, ethnobotany, language. That was the purpose of the museum and what their goal was to establish. This came about kind of during the 1960s and 70s when the tribe was attempting to get inventory for many of the baskets and artifacts that were inaccessible at the time in the big modern museums. So that was the reason the tribe was wanting to, start to get this inventory, find out who had what Rincon or Liseño items, and make those items accessible to the tribal members. However, now today, the museum is open to the public. So that is something that they have changed as of recent, over the last few years. The museum boasts a good educational program. They provide outreach programs for schools free of charge. The schools are allowed to either tour the museum or where they can learn basketry, language lessons, as well as there's digital exhibits available to the students. There's also a small resource library that's filled with many native-centric books, especially specifically dedicated to California tribes. Anything that is displayed in the museum right now, it is done in a respectful way. Sometimes some items are not finished because that is the way of the Liseño, that because it's such a traditional idol, they do not want to completely finish it. It's a way to express a respect for that. Also, they are attempting to display Liseño language with some of the items. That is what is being used now, and in order to authenticate that. Okay. So here's just a quick look at some of the items as I mentioned. We have different baskets. There's also some stones, some of the stone work for the grinding stones. There are a couple baskets that were on display. I was not actually allowed to take pictures of some of the ones that the museum did not quite have the permission for, because they are borrowed items from some of the bigger museums, like I mentioned. But anything, so there was a lot of replica items, and this is just a display of some of the items that the museum holds right now. The grass skirts, basketry, and like I said, grinding stones. So a little bit more of what the museum held. There was a very small section on American Indian boarding schools specific to the Sherman Indian Boarding School, which is actually only located probably about, I would say, 75 miles from here. It's in the Riverside area, the city of Riverside. However, Rincon is located down in San Diego County, but they're not that far. And there were just a few pictures and a little bit of information on some of the stuff, and there was an old booklet that was on display. But with the history of the boarding schools, of course, it has, as we know, that has not been a great history, but it seems like the museum was wanting to display a little bit more of the, kind of the modern take on it, but it's still showing how it used to be, because there is a picture in here that was showing the transition from when the students still first got there, and then of course how they transitioned and looked a lot different. So one of the things that the Rincon Museum, or the Washayam Punky Museum, is attempting to do is fix their relationship with local museums. They actually have went to two major museums: the San Diego Museum of Man, which is located in Balboa Park, and then the Riverside Metropolitan Museum, which is located in Riverside, California. What the curator decided to do is they went nationwide to collect inventory of the surrounding museums and to find out what they had in their possession. Rincon specifically had a Culture Bank grant fund program where they found out all the inventory that every museum had. This was during the 1970s. This map is showing the different location of the Rincon Luiseño locations and areas. So what they did is they went to the different reservations with these binders and posters. This is back before computers, and they were able to create an inventory and assign names and find out whose baskets were who, and also to make the local museums accountable with what items they had, whose baskets did they have, which tribes, which band. So that was something that the attempt of the Rincon Museum was. This actually would fall under the National Museum of American Indian Art Act, in that they were working with not only the local museums but with museums nationwide to be able to make them accountable by identifying and making sure we knew what inventory they had. So another thing that the curator Cheryl informed me of was how the Native American Graves Protection and Reparation Act is working with this museum. So the curator here, Cheryl, she is a liaison for NAGPRA, and she is working with many of the museums who have human remains. The goal behind the Luiseño relationship with NAGPRA and with the local museums is to rebury what Luiseño remains they have and rebury them on the different band areas, whether that is specific to Rincon. As I mentioned earlier, there are 6 recognized Luiseño bands: Saboba, Pachanga, Paula, Palma, Rincon, and La Jolla. The goal is to identify what we can and allow them to be reburied or respectfully put where they belong. And this is something that the museum is working on and something that they've been attempting to do. And even though Cheryl recognized that NAGPRA doesn't have, much teeth in doing this, but the fact that the tribes are attempting to do this, I think that's something that's really going to be beneficial to the tribe and to the members to know that their people are, being taken care of and placed respectfully where they need to be. So another thing about this small museum that I found out is that the Rincon Museum has actually a very high standard for the displays that they do have. Granted, they did have a very small display area. It's not very big, as the curator mentioned. They are trying to grow, but the thing is that in order for them to house the items they do have that they are currently sharing with some of the museums in the bigger museums in the local area, they are actually set to a very high standard. So they are climate controlled facility. They do not have water fire extinguishers. In order to receive the loans that they have loan agreements with the display items. This is also part of the American Alliance of Museums. That's the accreditation that they're receiving, the agreement that they made. Of course, that was formerly known as the American Association of Museums. But the funny thing is that the Rincon Liceño Museum is making sure that standard is met. But what the curator let me know is that even though that's happening, the bigger museums don't actually have some of the standards that the Rincon Museum has. So that was interesting to know that their standards higher than some of these museums who are housing some of the Rincon and the Liceño items. And so that was just very interesting. Because, of course, in the end, the goal is to house their own items and have the tribal items displayed by the tribe. So if anyone's interested in speaking with or getting information, this is the contact information, of course, on the link with the presentation. You'll have access. Her name was Cheryl Madigal. Again, like I said, located in 1 West Tribal Road, Valley Center, California. The museum is is open Tuesdays and Thursdays, but you can come any day if you're in the Southern California area, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or, of course, by appointment. And then here is the reference sheet. All right, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you.